Our talk on what happens when we make everyone participate in QA, and we really do mean everyone. We're going to talk about that. Our hope is that as we go through what we learned through our journey of engaging everyone, that you can take bits and pieces back and leverage them in your own company, regardless of how size it is, regardless of your user base. You don't need a huge team to make what we're talking about work, although it does help sometimes. Before we get started, I want to introduce my co-presenter. I call her the queen of QA, but she prefers Lana Khilko. She is one of the best QA people I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Her attention to detail is amazing. Her seal of approval on a feature merge is worth its weight in gold. Always happy to have her as my QA person, and very, very happy to be up here and presenting with her today.
Oh, thank you very much, Cody, and good morning, everyone. Now let me introduce my amazing co-speaker. Cody Henthorne is an Android engineer at Groupon. He is a driver of many positive changes in our team and overall in the company. It is a pleasure to present with him because of his amazing sense of humor, positive attitude, exceptional professionalism, and endless energy.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, yeah. Get the good energy going. Thanks, Lana, very much. And let's get started. And of course, this stops working as soon as it's time to start presenting. All right. Is everything stopped working? Okay, a little technical difficulties. We got that out of the way. So what do you mean by everyone? Did we miss a slide? Crap. We mean everyone. Like, I think, damn, sorry guys, slide got messed up. All kinds of technical difficulties to get started. So, why did we want everyone to be in QA? The answer for us is it was part of a solution to improving the quality of our mobile app. So we're very driven to try and do that, and the best way that we could find to do it was to engage the entire company, everything in the company, and even people outside of the company to help us improve the quality of our apps. And it worked for us. What we did is proven to work, and you don't have to take our word for it. Last year, Comscore rated us the top 25, in the top 25 of all mobile apps, I think right below Spotify. And Applause rated us the #1 retail app by sales. Great things, but what we're the most proudest of is our Play Store ratings. We have over 1 million reviews, 4.5 stars. Android users are notorious for being, a little more outspoken about their apps than iOS developers. So to be able to maintain that with so many users and so many reviews, we're really, really excited about that. And that's what happens. Like, not to bury the lead, but when you engage everyone, you get a nice quality app out of it. But I digress. In addition to getting a quality app, you're also able to ship features faster and with fewer bugs, which is also great. And hopefully, as time moves on, we're going to embrace these things even more that we're going to talk about and be able to go faster and without necessarily having to increase our QA personnel and manpower. So what do we mean by everyone? Gary Oldman said it best, everyone. We really mean everyone and everything at our disposals. So to start off, we wanted to leverage the closest thing we have to an unlimited resource. Computers. I have one. Every developer has one. Every QA has one. There's clouds of them that we have access to. There's clouds of them that you have access to. Why not leverage those as best as you can? Next two are fairly straightforward. Hopefully your developers are engaged in managing your quality and testing and smoke testing your app, and as well as your QA staff is engaged in doing that too. Otherwise, you might need to get some new people if they're not. So what's left? Well, we wanted to meaningfully engage our product managers, the salespeople, IT, support staff, admins, secretaries, everybody that is in Groupon that has a vested interest in Groupon doing well and the app doing well for our customers. We wanted to be able to leverage them to help us do that. And lastly, the most important stakeholder in any mobile app, your users. We wanted to be able to interact with them and also leverage the information that we get from them, the people that are buying on Groupon, the people that are even selling on Groupon, and do the right thing for them by listening to them and fixing our app. And, the truth of app development, bugs get out. You try your best, you do everything you can, but it's going to happen. So you need to be smart in how you look for those issues, because they're not always going to be in Crashlytics, they're not always going to be in the Play Store, and how you respond to them and how quickly you can respond to them to do right by your users. So now we've defined what everyone is. Let's go down and talk about each one. So if you're in the talk before this by Drew, he talked a lot about CI, which is great. Hopefully everybody here at a testing track part of a conference, you know about continuous integration and how important it is. But in case you don't, we're just going to recap real quick. Definitely not going to go in as depth as Drew did. So if you want more in-depth CI, go back in time, listen to his talk, or hopefully grab the recording. But it can do a lot of things for you. It's very important for maintaining the quality of your app because it can do so many things for you every time the code changes without a human being involved. And that's huge. Like, that's how you can scale. The first thing it can do, make sure it compiles. Like, it happens. You get a bad merge. You merge something at the end, no conflicts, but hey, they deleted a file that you needed, and now you just merged blindly and pushed. Your app doesn't compile anymore. And that affects a lot of things downstream. Very simple, very helpful. Next, you can run all kinds of quality checks. There's lint that Google provides. There's lint rules that you can write yourself. There's Java check style, find bugs, things that a computer can run and make sure that your code base is staying consistent across the team. Finding issues that you might have missed in a PR because you have this computer that is really good at doing what you tell it to do and will do it right every time. Next, your test, which we'll talk a little bit more later. But you have a suite of tests. You can run them every time. Again, it makes sure that any code that every change that you're making, your existing functionality doesn't break, which is great. And any new functionality you're adding, hopefully you're sending with unit test as well to ensure that that new functionality works as expected. And lastly, to keep bad code, hopefully, from getting into master or your main branch, is a CI can act as a gatekeeper. It can interact with your code management system and indicate when you have a pull request or a push that has failed one of these things, one of these checks that you have set up and you've all agreed on as a company that, or as a team that you don't want to happen. So by having like a big red X there, you know, oh man, something broke, let me go fix it. So beyond CI, which I think a lot of people are already leveraging, you can use computers to do more. Any repetitive or mundane task that you're doing on a regular basis, automate it. I had a mentor that told me one time, he's like, if I've done one thing once, that's great. If I've done it twice, that's one more time, then I should have automated it. I'm not saying you have to take that crazy of an approach to automating things, but just having a mindset where you're thinking like, man, I have to do this thing every week. If I could write a script or a tool to do that for me, then I'm saving myself time. One of the big things that we focus on at Groupon is we want to automate our regression testing. And that means building out unit tests and letting a computer run these automation tests instead of taking time from our manual QA to do that. You can do trend analysis for your bugs, your analytics, crashes, things like that, which you would normally have to go in and like digest a spreadsheet or go look at Fabric. You can have a computer monitor that 24/7. They're not going to sleep. They don't care. They don't need caffeine. They don't need candy to get through the day. They're going to be sitting there 24/7 looking at crash reports, looking at things that are coming in, and they can notify you when something is going sideways. You can send an email, send a Slack message, tweet at you, turn the LED strip that the guy set up to that Raspberry Pi in the office red. All these types of things that you can do that computers can notify you so that then you can react. So you don't have to be sitting there like watching, okay, yeah, no bugs, still no bugs. You can go out and start doing more feature work and let the computer do the work for you. And the last thing that I think has saved us quite a bit of time, especially a lot of Lana's time, is we automated our test bed configuration, even for manual QA. So before we have a way to mock a lot of APIs and like override the production server's responses that are coming back to the app. And by automating it, instead of them taking all this time to looking up a test case, finding what overrides they need to do, copy and pasting it, configuring the test bed, and then running the test, they just hit a button. They go to the test case, they hit the button. Takes 5 seconds as opposed to 5 minutes. So if you had to do that 12 unit tests or 12 test cases in a day, you're what, an hour? Already saved. You got a team of 10 hours, you gain over a day now in other productivity, which is awesome. So automate stuff. Computers are there. They'll do your bidding. They don't have to adopt to your culture. They're not going to argue with you for the most part. Get them on your side and leverage them as best you can. So developers, hopefully, I'm a developer. I want to be invested in our quality. They're not just going to sit there and jam it on their code. QA is going to look at them and was like, just give me the feature already, and then shipping it over with nothing. They can do more than that, and they should be doing more than that. And we can be a little cantankerous, we can be set in our ways, but it's worth engaging them from a quality perspective and meaningfully telling them ways that they can help contribute. So one of the first ways we do this, and I was really excited when Kelly was talking about it in her keynote, was we actually require unit tests and UI automation tests for merge. So when you submit a PR and it doesn't have a unit test, we call you out. Developers hold each other responsible, and if you don't have a unit test, we're like, code looks great, add some unit test. And we always, if a PR comes in first with unit test, everyone always says great test, or like thanks for the test. So we're creating this feedback loop of positivity as opposed to negativity of like, oh, well, you had one unit test, but now that's only 10% coverage, where's the everything? And we're not looking for 100%. I think Drew kind of touched on this too in the previous talk of like, 100% is unattainable in a realistic manner. You're gonna spend so much time maintaining those tests after you write them that it's not worth it. So we don't look for 100% coverage, and we're okay with that. But we do expect some unit tests, and we work with our QA team who actually identifies high-value candidates to automate. So they have P1 and P0 test cases. We automate those so that we know that they're running every time, and we make sure that we maintain those. And then we let them do in the manual the P2s and the P3s, stuff that if we don't get to or we skip or don't pay as much attention to, it's not as critical. We convey the code changes to QA. Like, we work together. There's a culture within the Groupon that we've created by focusing on quality and making everybody engaged that it's okay. Like, we work together on what test cases we run, and we also convey the code changes. So QA knows, like, hey, we're going to be changing these screens, and we're going to be replacing this library, and we're refactoring this. They know, okay, that's going to affect these test cases. This is how much time it's going to take. This is the risk level. And we also help convey some of that risk too. It's like, we're going to change the checkout button. Okay, that's kind of risky, right? You want to get paid, so you don't want to mess with the payment too much. So that's a high-risk change that we convey to QA so that they know to pay special attention to that kind of stuff. And if you're in a pinch, and maybe you don't have quite the QA resources you need, you can use this to identify what changes you really need to focus your manual QA on and what pieces, like changes that you may not. So changing the functionality of the checkout button, very important. Changing the color, not as risky. So maybe they don't have to test that as hard. Next, one of the things that I haven't experienced anywhere before was dev first pass. And what that is before a dev can hand a feature over to QA to be tested, they have to run a set of tests that they've worked together with QA to define. And it's essentially an agreed upon smoke test. And it happens. You've had a stand-up meeting, you're like, hey, I got the search feature, it's all ready. I'm gonna send it to QA. QA in their part was like, well, did you run the smoke test? And they're like, I'll run that right now. And then you're like, I'll have it for you later this afternoon. Because you find things, like developers, we're setting our path, right? We figure out the quickest path to test what we think we need to test, and we just do that over and over and over again. And these test cases in the dev first pass or like a smoke test allows us, or forces us, to kind of go outside of that and make sure that the feature really is ready. So we reduce that kind of boilerplate conversations where we submit something, Lana finds a bug, submits a ticket, has to provide logs, have to provide repro steps, screenshots. We get the ticket, we have to ingest it, figure out what's wrong. Just by running this smoke test that we've already agreed on up front, we eliminate a lot of that. And lastly, nope, not lastly, I think. We'll find out. In-app support for testing. We have tools in the app for QA as well as developers to modify the state of the app without having to clear shared preferences and clear the data and reinstall. We work with QA, it's both ways. We'll see the potential, like, hey, we need to be able to reset this shared preference counter to 0. We're gonna add this to our secret menu. We've had the other way where like QA is in the process of writing their test cases, like, man, it'd be really cool if you could have a button that nukes this thing for us so that we don't have to redo this and shorten up their manual testing. And we integrate those into the app. And it's really helpful, not just for QA, but developers use it too, because when you're building a feature, you're running over and over and over again, just like QA would. And to be able to clear those out with a button click instead of having to like go and muck with your code is great. All right, it wasn't last. A/B test. sure most of you are familiar with A/B tests as a way of experimenting with code. You can also use them as feature flags. Again, if you were here for Drew's talk, he talked a lot about that. We use them for the very similar way for testing experience to make sure that the quality of our app is improving. Like the change we made is a positive change. Very important to do that. But we also use it to protect ourselves for unfinished features that we need to make sure that we maintain with master, or if we have a crash that we find in one of our splits, we're able to turn off that experiment or set it to the other path so that no more users will encounter that bug and we can work and get a fix out without impairing the rest of our users. So that is the less for developers. I'm going to hand it back to Lana. She's going to talk about QA.
All right. So after computers and developers, let's move on to the QA stuff. The first and very important thing I really want to start with is how amazing the Groupon culture is in general and the QA developer relationship specifically. QA staff at Groupon are well respected. Their opinion are valued and important. It probably sounds silly to say, but is not always true, as we all know. We really feel the value from what we are doing together as a team. And here you can see one of the examples of this collaboration and cooperation, developers presenting with QA, which is not like something usual for the conference. So it's culture of respect. Then QA Groupon wears multiple little hats: developers, various stakeholders, designers, PMs, and of course our own QA hat. Wearing multiple hats enables you to see the big picture and draw connections between different parts of the app. It helps you to be an expert, it helps you to execute fast, and it helps you to be with your team and answer any questions they might have for you. So also we have, of course, dedicated responsibilities. Every QA is assigned to each platform or feature. Being dedicated to a specific feature enables you to develop an expertise around that area. And here, again, you will be able to execute fast and answer all the questions related to your feature or functionality. We also encourage QA to switch roles sometime and help out other teams with their features or components to share the knowledge and responsibilities as well. Next thing is we have a final word on every feature merge. No exceptions, no ifs and or buts. And now this is not to create any additional troubles for developers or assert our power, but it really helps us to do our job of ensuring the app quality. Additionally, we require backend teams to get mobile QA team approval before making their deployments. We really want to make sure that deployed app version don't break by a bug introduced with the backend change. And this actually has saved us multiple times already. And writing test cases. We work very close with developers when writing test cases for new features. It helps us to make sure that the requirements for the feature are well understood, and it gives QA a better idea on what sorts of scenarios to focus on based on the way the code is structured. It also helps developers to better understand edge cases and some scenarios they may have not previously thought to cater for. Of course, we are not only executing. In order to understand where we can do a better job, we constantly analyze QA team performance. Number of bugs we are finding, where we are finding them, how long does it take to execute test cases and scenarios. This helps us to understand where the time should be spent, how we can improve the process, identify automation candidates, and also troublesome areas of the app. Usually identifying those trouble areas, it gives us many bugs every release, results in code refactor or this component, other global improvements to make our apps in general more robust. And Being focused on computers and how we can better use them to save people times enables us to work under this quality triangle or quality strategy: strong and solid base of unit tests, then automation test, and only then manual QA. Manual QA is critical, but it should be used for knowledge-based testing and new features bring up, not for large amounts of regression testing. And we want to involve every... What is that? Is it a bug, Cody?
File a ticket.
Yeah, I will. So, and of course, we want to involve everyone in testing: managers, PMs, designers, sales, and other non-engineering teams. So every release, actually pre-release, but when all feature development and QA is completed for that sprint, we organize test parties. This is a 30 minutes to 1 hour event where attendants are getting latest code and they can test and report bugs. This is a fun party-style event with prizes and gifts. It really doesn't let it make boring. On the other side, this is a dedicated time for all of us to focus on app quality, ask last-minute questions, report bugs, and brainstorm ideas. Another great thing is a cat food or dog food program we've run for almost 2 years now. The cat food is an internal version of Groupon app. Majority of the employees around the world are using this version in place of the real Groupon app. Cat food app updates automatically. It is extremely easy to use, and it allows our audience to report bugs at any time by simply shaking the phone. So they can provide feedback, and we can later analyze it. And what else is great about cat food? It has all cool new features available for Groupon employees before release. They can play around and get familiar with. While Grouponers are using cat food, we closely monitor all the data coming from it: number of users, devices, number of feedbacks, crashes. We have access to screens recording, different types of metrics, different types of data we can use to make sure we are ready to go to production. This is actually helps us to catch important bugs that might be really hard to find during regular feature testing done by QA. For example, region or country-specific bugs, or operation system version, device-specific bugs, some edge cases, and usability issues we might even not think about. Here you can see some statistics about cat food. We have around 8,000 weekly visitors on Android. Similar numbers are on iOS, and this is again a great source of information for us to analyze. And we are getting around 200 feedbacks every release. 17 numbers are not final yet, and this is not about bugs only. This is about improving features, understanding how users actually use the feature, and getting suggestions and ideas from everyone. Of course, there is a lot of work to keep people involved in cat food. We want to make sure that people feel their feedback is valued. To achieve this, we reply to every feedback in next 24 hours. No feedback can be left without reply or without resolution. The key part of success of any internal testing program is keeping in touch with people and providing feedback, providing responses, and communication. So as a short resume, cat food helps us to mitigate gaps in usability testing, have a better real-world coverage. It helps to improve QA and developers' comfort level for sure. And what is very important, it involves all people in the organization to care about product, to be involved in the product, not only engineering team. So from here, I want to throw it back to Cody.
Thank you. Cat food's been pretty awesome. We're really proud of it. So this is our customers, our user base. How do we interact with them? And first thing is we directly engage them. Again, Like, it feels like every talk before this, the keynote and Drew's talk, they talked about interacting with users and doing user testing. We do that. We don't do it necessarily before, unfortunately. We'll do it after a feature's been released and we can collect people in and run through experiments and see direct feedback right from them, like how easy is it to use the app? Are these assumptions that we're making that users are going to follow this flow, or are they actually doing it? And it's invaluable data that you can get from your actual population. We do incremental rollout. Google Play has a great way of rolling out APKs. We're a little less aggressive than if you were here for Drew's talk, but started at 5%, and we'll let that run at 5% for almost a day, depending on how things are going. But and then we'll ramp up to 20%, 50%. Like we leverage that because if you find an issue, you're monitoring your bugs, and you see a spike at 5% of your population, yeah, something's probably pretty bad, and you need to address that before you impact the rest of your user base. We have 100,000 daily active users, so even a little 5% is quite a bit, and we don't want to mess around with anything more than that. We talked about the A/B tests. We do an incremental ramp of those as well. Again, it allows us to verify that our changes are improving the quality. We don't go full 100%. We'll ramp the population levels and split them at 5%, 20%, 50% to make sure that the changes that we think are going to improve the quality actually improve the quality. And the users are going to be the best ones to tell you that because they're either going to buy something or they won't. And you want them to buy stuff. So the changes we make hopefully is improving the quality, is also improving their experience, which is leading them to encouraging them to purchase. We monitor user reviews very closely, and we take them very seriously, not just from a star rating level, but also like what they're saying. We have a team that will send out reports with every release at, I think it's like 4 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, that will take all of the crashes that we've had, determine if they're existing or new, identify that, and also categorize all of the user input that we've gotten from one-star reviews, and give us not just the text, but say, we got 2 1-stars about people not being able to purchase in Ireland. We got 1 1-star because somebody couldn't change their city location. So we have these types of pointers. You put your Sherlock Holmes hat on, use that as a lead, and start investigating. If somebody's reporting this and taking the time to tell you this on the Play Store, that probably means other people are experiencing it too. And it's worth your time to look into that. And we've done that multiple times and have found multiple issues that we weren't seeing through our other reporting mechanisms, by following the lead that our user voluntarily gave us. And we'll go in there and able to fix those problems, and it's been very helpful for us. So it's very important. And lastly, I kind of hinted at this. We have dedicated teams for release monitoring. It helps that we have a large-scale company. We're able to have people that are dedicated to monitoring the bug releases and crashes and things like that. But they're not just devs. They're not just QA. We have product involved, dev QAs involved, QAs involved. Everybody's working together, so when we do find an issue, we can get a resolution to it in a matter of hours. Because if it's a usability issue, then product can make a decision, we can make a change, QA can invalidate, we can get a patch out. If it's a bug, developer gets involved, fixes it, QA can validate it, get a patch out. The other benefit to it is we have, I think, about 50 plus resources in Romania that are Android developers and QA. So we have a little bit of a time 24-hour coverage there where our team in Romania maybe can respond to a crash, submit the fix, and then our QA team on the West Coast can verify it and prepare the deployment. And you flip that, we find something on the West Coast, Romania the next day can pick that up, fix it, ship a release. So lots of people involved for that, just for responding to stuff that our customers are encountering, and it's very important to take them into account. They're your most important stakeholders. The app might be your baby, but it wouldn't be a thing without your users. So listening to them is important, and being smart about how you do that. So what happens when everyone's part of QA? Your quality goes up, everybody gets happy. It's been great. I feel more engaged with our QA team. It really is a company culture that we've developed where people feel engaged. They get that cat food release out, and we have rewards. You can get Groupon bucks for shaking the app, and if you're the first person to report a bug, $50. Sweet. Go get that wine tasting and take the wife out. We encourage it. So we encourage everybody outside of engineering. We encourage engineering to take a more direct role in managing the quality. They're not just building features, but they're building features and also helping maintain the quality of the app and improving the app. QA, we respect. They're not those guys in the corner that say no all the time. They're like, no, this crashed. We work with them, and they work with us, and it's been great. And then our user base as well, being smart with how you react to them and listen to them can really help in the long run. So what happens? You get to do a big old 90s tool group high five. But it's been great. Lana, you got any closing remarks?
Yeah, so I totally agree with everything Cody just said. It's really important to have this culture of respect, to have the culture where everyone is involved in the product and we communicate and share and doing something really together, not only in words. So. And
it's not hard to do. Like, this is applicable outside of Android. We focus on mobile because I'm a mobile developer, she's a mobile QA. It's an Android summit. But you could take this to web, you take this to iOS, you take this to backend, maybe not so much for the user aspect of backend, but it's a process that's applicable to multiple things. And if you're curious about like what stuff that Kelly talked about in the keynote, if it actually works, it works. Like a lot of it lined up with a lot of stuff that we do, and it was really exciting to see her talking about it. I was like, yeah, we do that. Oh yeah, I've had that conversation too. Now we have our own way of removing that boilerplate. It works. Try it out. Give it a shot. Take bits and pieces, integrate it with your stuff, ship better apps. And that's it. So we would be remiss if we didn't say as well that Groupon is hiring Android developers, QA, product, the whole works. If you're interested in that, feel free to come find us, chat about it. We'll be around the rest of the day and tomorrow. If you find us, come please chat. If you want to discuss any of this stuff, really happy to talk about it. We're really proud of it. Hopefully that shows. But yeah, I think we finished quite early, so hopefully you guys have lots of questions.
Questions?
So I've got a question. This was an awesome talk. Thank you. I really like the idea of the developer first pass,
Yes.
just like an agreed upon run-of-the-mill thing.
Like smoke test type thing.
Yes,
yeah, it's actually, just to clarify, this is not a replacement of QA testing. We don't want to like put our responsibilities on developers, but it's to ensure that feature is actually ready to test, and we encourage developers to run smoke tests on real devices, not on emulator, as you said during the keynote. So
yeah, definitely. So thank you so much. I'm just curious about like your cat food implementation for how you roll that out to people. Is there like a third-party app that you're using so that like non-technical people can just get the updates? And what do you use and how does that work?
For the updates, we use private beta through Google Play.
actually, we are using TestFairy, testfairy.com. If you go there, there are like many different variations. You can use free version or paid version. It depends on your needs and the size of the organization. Regarding the updates, as Cody said, we have a really amazing team working on cat food. They send really fun emails about new features every release when it is available. The first setup, it's pretty straightforward. We just give Android or iOS folks the link. They download the app, log in, and they can use it. Like, there is no any other overhead. It updates automatically. They just see the pop-up, new version is available, click on it, and they have a newer one. And they also have a control on A/B tests within this internal version of the app. So if, for example, PMs are really happy to have cat food, they don't need to request APK or IPA every time to test, so they know that cat food is available. I can turn on my feature, see how it works, and turn it off if I want, check different combination of ABs.
Yeah, that's part of those developer or the testing tools that we integrate into our secret menu. Product managers know how to get in there. There's a prominent link in our cat food app if somebody wants to go in there and go and edit the experiments and turn things on and off to make sure everything still works the way they want.
Very cool. So do you have then, just like as a follow-up, do you have like a story when you're implementing a new feature? Do you have a story that says like to always implement like a debug menu for this feature, or how do you continue to remember to add that capability into the app?
The A/B tests we get for free. The other things that we talked about, like being able to reset flags and stuff like that, that's more of an ad hoc thing. It's not it's not part of the process. I think most recent one we did, one of the QA guys was writing the test cases up, and he was just like, man, I really don't want to do this every time. Comes back to that automation thing. I was like, how can we make things, let the computer do the work for you? And so they'll tell us, and we'll be like, yeah, we should totally do that, and then we'll add it. Sometimes we'll put a little conscious thought, but it's not part of a process officially.
Yeah, it usually comes naturally, what we feel we need. We just talk to developers. But by the way, other things like automation, automate test cases for the feature, this is a part of Epic subtask. So you cannot close the subtask before you have, let's say, 15% of your feature P0, P1 test cases automated. We do not require them to be automated before integration, but after integration, developers have some time to work on automation.
And it's 50% of the test cases, not the code. Just to clarify that.
Yeah.
Like,
Sorry.
they've written out a P0, P1, P2 test cases for a feature, and so we have to make sure that we cover the 15% of P0 and P1s, which may or may not equate to who knows what type of percentage of coverage of actual lines of code.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So what tool do you use for A/B testing?
Birdcage, but I'm not sure
Yeah,
if that's actually
Birdcage and
public.
Finch.
We had a bunch of stuff internal. I think Birdcage is what we use to manage them, and then the app just does a JSON pull at the beginning at launch and just pulls down a JSON of all the experiments.
And is that
sets
managed
it.
by Birdcage, or is that available from Birdcage?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
If I'm on a feature team, if our core team was here, I could ask them, and they probably know. But I think it is, but it's just like redirected through Groupon API.
And then just a follow-up, when you're using the cat fooding app, how do you capture developer logs? Like if you're using the cat fooding app and something goes awry, how do you, the developer, get logs that are meaningful to you so that you can figure out, all right, where did that go south? And is it safe to assume that you don't log everything on the release? Is that a release build?
No, release build, no. Cat food builds and release builds are very separate, and because we do a lot more stuff in our cat food build because we're our own company, we can do extra things that might degrade performance or collect additional information that we volunteer. But
So actually there are two ways how we can get feedback. First of all, there are some things that will be reported automatically, like crash. Users don't need even to shake the app. And the good thing about Test Fairy, it even reports crash when the app completely unlaunchable. So it's very kind of good part of it. And another thing is when users are shaking the app, it goes to some particular email. Previously, we've done it manually. We log every feedback to a Jira ticket and then triage it, like components create triage it. But now we have a script that automatically creates Jira ticket, and we just need to go to the cat food dashboard and triage it. There, from the Jira ticket, you have an access to Test Fairy session where you can see screens recording, logs, and all the important information.
so
Thank you.
yep.
First off, I love the culture of thank you for the unit tests, right? I think that's great. But building on top of the tooling you were talking about with your merges, you check for unit tests. What tools are you using, and how are you accomplishing that?
How do we check for them? PRs.
Okay, like you're using like a Jenkins job or something like that, Jacoco?
To run them, or just to verify that they're there?
Just to verify that they're there.
No, it's a manual thing, so it's something maybe we should automate and be able to flag. I'm going to take a lot of stuff to automate and like grab. When a feature is merged, being able to look to see if it included unit tests and notifying that through a ticket or through an email or team, I think that would be a great idea, a great ripe thing for automation. Right now, it's purely part of, we have kind of divided teams, like each product vertical has their own team, and of that team we were responsible to 2 people to review the PR, and part of that is like checking for unit tests.
Okay, thank you.
So right now it's manual.
So I understand outside of the QE team and the development team, the testing is going on. And whenever there's new build, there's a pop-up that is giving them a hint that they can download and test it. But how do they know the functionality or the additional features that went in and what exactly the requirement of it, and if there is more number of bugs or questions, how do you handle that?
So a couple questions in there. The first one, how does QA know when a build's ready? When we they just know, they're omniscient. When we submit a PR, we make the PR associated with a JIRA ticket. So if it's a bug fix, we just, in the title of the PR, we put, ancon-number. And our CI system and our cooks will update the ticket saying, hey, this bug is in review. And then when we merge it, the ticket will be updated to say it's done. And then QA will know when they come in, they look at all the tickets, or they're listening for ticket notifications, they'll see that this is done, which means I can go in and verify this bug fix, or I can go in and test this feature. But the other questions, and like how do we resolve issues? We have stand-ups. We have PRDs that our product team writes that everybody agrees on and looks at very early before even implementation happens. And we come together over that to resolve issues. That's how we get the initial questions. And then as far as like later on, usual agile stuff where we have hip chat channels that are reserved to every specific feature in every team, so that when there's an issue, we can tag somebody in there. Everybody has access to the product. Everybody has access to QA. Everybody has access to the developers. There's no, we're not siloed off. We're all in one big room. So QA has to sometimes look through a bunch of, hey, why don't you read my PR yet? That's obviously targeted towards the developers, but they get to kind of be involved in what's going on too. And
regarding the second part of your question, when we, for example, organize test parties, we just bring devices with us with latest build, and we explain the audience what to test and what to focus mostly on each platform. For cat food program, we actually is not a goal for the cat food audience to test the requirements, because this is done by QA, and we are doing our jobs there. We want mostly them to focus on the usability, on some ideas they have, or obviously if they see some pretty obvious bugs, they will report it as well. So they don't need to know the requirements, but we are sending every cat food release, we send an email with short summary of new features available for the audience, also in a fun style, like, hey, this is summer, similar to new Starbucks coffee, we have these features for you, something like that, and they know at least what is coming and what they can test.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you mentioned 100,000 active users. So I imagine that you touch a large pool of devices, and sometimes you get reports from a very obscure device that you don't have in the office. Mm-hmm. So how do you handle that? Do you use some kind of device farm from AWS or Firebase? Do you buy the device? Do you try to do something else?
Yeah, so actually it's a very good question. We have some kind of troubles with that as well, because we cannot have all the devices with all possible OS versions. First thing we try to do, we pull the Splunk data and we analyze how many users have this problem, and is there anything available for us to have repro steps for that particular bug. If we know exactly that, okay, we need this device, we usually use simulators, or we can ask Romania team, or we can, we communicate a lot, and we just trying to find who has the device we need for testing. And of course, within the team itself, we try to keep some devices on KitKat, some devices on latest OS version, so we have a better coverage and variety. But it's not always possible to have a particular device. So.
Fact of life. There's too many of them out there.
What are the steps to get to the dev options in your app? I'm just kidding. You don't need. No. It was a joke. Yeah.
It involves
you need to
fingers.
provide special credentials.
I'll give you a hint. It involves three fingers.
So, what information do you send up when the users shake their cat food app? What have you found to be really helpful? Because I know that the stack traces, that's the end part of the story. But I think for shaking, you kind of want to know the exact trajectory that user took to get to where they are.
Exactly. So it gives you, I don't know, Cody will speak for himself, what is important from developer's perspective. For QA, of course, we are looking at logs, we are looking at different metrics, but the very useful thing we have is screens recording. So you will have pretty much whole session recorded for that users. It can be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, so you can go through it, you can understand what user clicks and what triggered the bug. So this is really helpful to reproduce those issues.
Yep. What she said. Test Fairy. On top of that, because it's our cat food app, and when the ticket comes into the system, it doesn't come in as a blank, like, here's a cat food reporting. It's everybody in the company has a Jira account, and the ticket is associated to that person. So we could just tag them on the Jira ticket. It was like, hey, we saw you had this problem. We looked at the video. We're still having a little trouble. Can we talk? Hop on a 5-minute call real quick and figure out what was going on.
Yeah, so we can always request
details.
details.
Users.
So you said that you had 8,000 cat food users, right? Which is like a lot of users.
Weekly visitors, yeah.
Weekly visitors.
8,000
So
on each
not
platform.
necessarily unique. We didn't say unique, but
Okay.
we have 8,000 sessions and visitors using the app every week.
And 200 out of that gave you feedback about, like by shaking the app.
Yep.
So,
Usually it was about like averaging around 250.
Yeah, 250, it's usually more than 200.
okay. So two things, right? So first is how are you taking all of that feedback? 250 is also a lot of, right? How are you, triaging it and, like getting the gist out of what they want? If you're doing it effectively, then how are you encouraging more people to give you feedback, right? Is there any gamification? If you, report more or suggest more, then you get like a coupon on Groupon?
Yep. So the first part of your question, we have all 200 or more feedbacks triage, and users are getting reply. The first step is when automation script creates Jira tickets. Then we have support team that goes through each created ticket. It's not so many, it's like 10, 15 per day, for example. They go through it and clarify, is it a bug or is it a feature? Then if it is a bug, it goes to QA. If it is a feature, it goes to PM responsibility. And then every QA, as I said, we have dedicated responsibilities. We're assigned to particular component or feature. Let's say I'm working on search. Then I go to cat food Jira dashboard and I see all new bugs reported regarding this search for functionality. We use labels and like other different identifiers. So I triage all these bugs, or whoever is my team, and we log, we either reply if it is bug or not. We can request more info, or we can create Jira ticket for to move forward with the fix.
Okay.
The nice thing as a developer, all of that happens before we usually get involved.
Awesome.
Yep.
So it's already triaged, it's already determined if they want to fix it, and then by the time it gets to us, we know what the problem is and that we have to fix it.
And we usually reproduce it. So if we, it's not like there is a feedback, there is a Jira ticket for developer. No, we need to reproduce it, get more info, and only then create tickets for developers.
Cool. Another question, totally different topic. I don't like to ask this question usually, but you guys have like a great app with a great rating, and you seem to monitor user reviews, right? Mm-hmm. So there were like 35,000 users who gave you 1 star. So do you know like how many of them were actually quality problems versus garbage?
I don't know that offhand. We definitely, we're all probably familiar with App Store reviews and Amazon store reviews. Like the 1 stars can get a pretty flagrant of just like, I had the worst one I ever had. Download stopped at 87%, 1 star. So you didn't even install the app. Like, that's not my problem. We look at each one. I can't say like historically, but I don't know, probably for the last year or so, maybe longer. Every 1 star review we look at, and thankfully we have a team that will remove the cruft, the people that had those types of things that aren't really productive, and only the good stuff. The reviews that are of bad things that we want to actually address move up the chain.
Okay. Yeah, and because we are not only care about the bugs directly related to mobile engineering teams. There are many reviews like I'm not getting refund, like shipping is bad or something like that. So what we do, if we have at least like 1-2 reviews like that, we pull the data again. We try to find out how many users have this problem, and then we escalate it. We escalate it to support team to work better with feedback. So it's not like we don't care about feedbacks. They're not related to engineering.
Yeah, that's true.
We take it very seriously, and we all involved in the quality. And these ratings affect our mobile app. So how can we
We want those to be
Yeah.
good. To give you a specific example, we had the refunds thing. We found the date where those started happening, and we talked to our refunds team, and they had a change in policy around that same time that caused it. So we worked with them. They're like, hey, can we get a new policy that it isn't going to result as many 1 stars? And we worked through that and got an agreement there, and then those trailed off, and we were able to, constantly monitoring, being able to maintain that quality and improve it. I don't know how much time we got left. 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I didn't think we finished
It was
that early.
fast.
Are you just giving us all the way till noon for lunch or something? All right. Well, if you guys still have questions, we'll keep going. Somebody wants to go jump in line and be early for lunch. You won't hurt our feelings.
So you're using Splunk Mint for crash reporting? Is that what you're using?
Yeah, we use it for analytics. We use it for crash reporting. We also use Crashlytics and Fabric for crash reporting. TestFairy does some crash reporting, so we report all of the crashes everywhere.
So how do you know if an app is ready to ship? Say you have it in stage rollout for a certain amount of time. Do you have it should be the crash report should be lesser than 1% to ship or something like that?
I think we have 0 bugs policy, so if we have anything left to fix, we will fix it if it is a P0, P1 issues. For P2, P3, we can shift it to the next sprint, but otherwise, if we still have bugs, QA are not going to sign off on release. It's not going to happen.
Thank you.
And we don't want that to go, if we're getting P1, P0 bugs, a source of pride for us. We don't want that. And developers we write bug-free code. What do you mean there's a P0 bug in here? Oh, right, I forgot about that corner case. Let me go ahead and fix that. So again, it comes back to that whole culture where everybody's invested in putting out the best thing that we can do. Round 2.
Yeah, sorry, I have a lot of questions. So it's just such an interesting concept and great talk. So you talked about sort of the step that every feature will go through.
Mm-hmm.
So what is sort of the release cadence? How often are you pushing to the Play Store with, I think a lot of companies are afraid essentially to take this many steps before they release because they're afraid that then they will only release once a year, So how do you maintain your release cadence and move fast with this many steps as well?
We have releases every 3 weeks to App Store, so all this process fits within these 3 weeks, and we are pushing really hard to make it 2 weeks or close to 2 weeks. We are trying to find gaps where we spend too much time or what else we can cut to make it faster, but now it is 3 weeks release cycle.
So it's usually about 2 weeks of developer time, 1 week of testing, and then goes off. So I think we end up with 16-ish releases a year, 15 to 16 releases a year.
Yeah, it's growing
And
every year.
that's major releases, so we have patches and bug fixes that we're doing. I guess people find triage issues that we're encountering in the wild, we'll fix those as well. But major releases we have. I don't think there's a special cadence for patches. It's just a matter of okay, we need to fix these 3 bugs now.
Yeah.
We'll put a patch out. But major feature, what product design or what works against and what developers work against is a 3-week cadence.
Yeah, and you don't really need the whole year. You just need to good established process to be able to release fast and still make sure in the quality, because we don't want to play any gamble with quality, so we are not experimenting with risk-based because of this, so we really want to make sure that what we ship has a high quality. We don't skip any features during regression, during feature testing, a code refactor, backend changes, so we really test everything, and it fits within these 3 weeks.
Anybody else?
All right.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys. It's been great.
Yeah, we have lunch arranged in the first floor. You might